What is up? My name is Witty, and we are going to jump straight into the video. Not going to waste any time. This is 20 tips and tricks that I wish I knew when I started Diablo IV. Number 1. When you are looting. If you plan on salvaging your items and you have a full inventory, you can actually just store gems inside of items and clear up inventory space. Now, it is worth telling you guys that this only works when you plan on salvaging the item, because when you salvage an item, you get the gem back. However, when you sell an item, the gem does not come back to you. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm editing right now, and this isn't going to be a problem soon because gems are getting added to the material list. So yeah. Number 2. You do not have to refund all of your skill points and spend all of your gold doing so. You can simply right-click and refund 1 point at a time. Now, this isn't inherently mentioned anywhere outside of when you hover a skill, but it's pretty easy to miss, and it's not something I even knew for several days after starting the game. I refunded all probably 3 or 4 times, I will admit it. Number 3. Utilizing the Mark as Junk feature for your inventory. This one is a huge time saver, and I don't know how anyone plays without it, personally. This is something that was in Diablo 3 or something very similar. I believe they had a favorite option as well to prevent the items. Anyways, basically you hover an item, you hit spacebar on PC, it marks it as junk, right? I have 2 items here marked as junk, one that is, well, 3 that are not. If I was to right-click sell one junk item, all of the junk is sold, but the other items are left alone. It's that simple. It works for salvaging as well. Very strongly recommend. Number 4. If you're having any trouble figuring out what item is best and if you should swap it out with a current item you're wearing, turn on Advanced Tooltip Compare and Advanced Tooltip Information. What this essentially is going to do is give you the ranges of the items that you have on. So for example, this pair of legs here is 7.7% damage reduction. As you can see to the right, it could be anywhere from 4.6% to 10.7%, meaning I got a fairly mid-roll. Whereas, if you were to compare that to my maximum life roll, I'm much closer to the high end. Now, this isn't the best example because this is a Barbarian amulet, but when comparing items, it's toggleable with Shift, and as you can see, for equipping this rare amulet, I would lose 10% dex, 11% armor, energy cost reduction, ranks to exploit, etc. Like I said, bad example, Barbarian versus Rogue, but just so you get the point, you want to compare and contrast and pick the amulet that's best for your build as far as the stats go across the board. While we're here, we might as well touch on number 5. Just because you see a green number does not mean the item is better. I know that sounds really simple, but a lot of people have this issue where they see an entire screen of green numbers, and that means to them I should put that on because it's way better, obviously. Now, this is most common in items that are weapons, because the damage per second can be misleading. We'll put it that way. For Rogue, for example, I mean, I don't have my gear fully swapped to penetrating shot, so don't judge me. But this crossbow has vulnerable damage, critical strike damage with imbued skills, core skill damage, and dexterity. This isn't bad, per se, but let's say I found a crossbow with 2,650 damage per second that had damage to slowed enemies, damage to dazed enemies, intelligence, and basic skill damage. Sure, the damage per second is higher, but all of the other stats aren't being used for my build, so it is inherently worse overall. Hopefully that makes sense. Number 6, a lot of people like to run with this on their screen, so I felt like mentioning it because it only takes a couple seconds. Holding Control and typing R will show your frames per second counter at the bottom left of your screen. Hitting it again will show your latency/ping, whichever word you want to use, and hitting it a third time will remove it completely, so you can go back to being a normal person. Number 7, and I've seen this one everywhere. The speed at which your horse boosts is entirely dependent on the position of your mouse. If you're close to the horse, it's a very short burst of speed. Whereas if I go all the way to the corner, completely different result. Number 8. Use the Occultist to extract perfectly rolled aspects. I can't say this enough. Do I currently use a barrier? Well, no. May I use a barrier in the future if I decide I want to equip Temerity Pants? Possibly. Because of that, it's always good to have aspects that are max rolled ready to go, just in case you want to swap builds, which is something I do often. Number 9, pretty straightforward and simple. You don't have to keep gems or bring gems with you if you want to upgrade them. So for example, I have 176 flawless amethysts in my stash. If I wanted to make a royal amethyst, I can just do it at the jeweler. I don't have to bring it with me. Number 10, while we're on the topic of vendors, you should be checking especially the rings and amulet vendor for potential best in slot rings and amulets, because honestly, I've found so many of them in here. This one's a pretty decent example. I could reroll maybe life regeneration to either crit damage or vulnerable damage, and I have a decent ring for penetrating shot. Is it the best? Well, no, but it's only 600,000 gold, and I can get that in one dungeon run. So if you don't have something this good, it's a very quick upgrade at essentially no cost. Number 11. Are you a rogue, maybe a sorcerer, and you drop a unique or another random item that's particularly good for a different class that maybe one day in the future you might make? Such as this razor plate on the ground beside me, which might inspire me to make a thorns barb one day. Keep it. Just keep it. You have 4 stash tabs. You should dedicate one of them to just storing gear for builds that you might think look fun in the future and decide to make. Because what else are you going to put there, and why not? By the way, this razor plate, really solid roll, so I might actually end up making that thorns barb. Number 12. Glyphs have a radius upgrade at level 15. And this is very important because no matter what build guide you may be following, most of them are going to assume that your glyphs are level 15, and they will path the points accordingly to maximize efficiency and make sure you get the highest boost to your glyph, as well as most efficiently path to the next board. And sometimes this can cause having lower level glyphs to not quite reach the points that are needed to hit the extra bonus. And believe me when I tell you, you want the extra bonus. This is a very good example of an extra bonus that is just inherently extremely powerful. This is giving me 10% reduced damage just for wielding a ranged weapon. You really can't beat that. It's just free damage reduction. Number 13. The monsters that you will be fighting inside of Nightmare Dungeons, which are opened with Nightmare Sigils, will be 54 levels above the tier of the sigil. Using this as an example, it is a tier 51 Nightmare Sigil, meaning that the monsters inside this dungeon, as well as the boss, will be level 105. Now, I'm level 95, so this is 10 levels above me, which is starting to venture into the realm of maybe this dungeon won't be so much fun, but it is doable. If you're trying to play efficiently, you should ideally farm Nightmare Dungeons that are 3 levels above you. So in this case, I would want to run a tier 44, because if I was to add 54, that would make the monsters 98, which is 3 higher than 95. Number 14. Do you ever find yourself unable to locate your character in the center of a bunch of mobs? Well, Diablo IV thought of that problem, and if that's something you want to fix, head on over to the accessibility options, scroll down to highlights, make sure display player highlight is toggled, and choose yourself a color. Let's say I wanted to glow, I don't know, bright blue. Well, now I do. Number 15. It is way easier for the Helltide to farm Cinders a tier below you. Farm them in World Tier 3 and open the chests in World Tier 4, and typically you'll obtain the Cinders way faster. And not only that, but you run essentially 0 risk of dying because, well, these mobs are never going to kill you. Number 16, which is not actually something in-game, but rather at d4builds.gg there is an interactive map that I have been using since the start of the game to track progress with things. And as you can see here, I have 83 of the 160 Altars of Lilith completed, and to mark them off, all you have to do is click them, and it grays them out. You can do the same thing with dungeons, strongholds, and anything else. Number 17 is also on d4builds.gg, and we're going to talk about the gear affixes page, because when you're enchanting and rerolling stats on an item, it's pretty useful to know what can roll on that item, especially if you're not following a particular build that has suggested stats. Let's say you're running a Stormclaw build and you know that you use, I don't know, basic skill attack speed. Well, this rolls on your helm, so maybe it's something that you should aim for on your helm. Now you know it rolls there. There are also class-specific things, such as Maximum Spirit, Maximum Fury for Barbs, ranks of Iron Maiden for Necromancers, skill-specific things. Each item has its own affixes as well as its own class-specific affixes. So the link for this will be in the description. It's a very useful resource to have. Number 18, which is essentially just to make sure that if you're going for experience, you're doing your best to kill monsters that are 3 levels higher than you. And this is really only something you can control in Nightmare Dungeons. And in order to do that, you need to make sure you're on the proper tier. The monster's level is determined by the tier of the sigil. You need to take the tier number and add 54 to it, and that is the monster number. Monster level. You get the point. 28 and 54 is 82. That would be 6 levels higher than my Druid here. That's perfect as long as I can kill them in an appropriate time. In a perfect world, I would want to be 3 levels higher, which means I would be doing tier 25s. And very soon, when I hit level 77, I would move up to tier 26s if possible. But as long as you're killing things with a good speed, you're doing great. Just try to keep them 3 levels higher than you or more. Number 19, and we're jumping back to useful websites. Helltides.com. Very simple and straight to the point. Anytime a Helltide is active, which you should be participating in my opinion, this website will show you where the mystery chests are with the green circles, including when they reset, and it will also show you events going on during the Helltide. So, again, very useful resource that I'd recommend anyone use when participating in the Helltide. Number 20. Just have fun. That's the point of the game. It's a video game. Have fun. Play the game however you want to play it ultimately, and do your best to have a good time. At the end of the day, that's what it's here for. And as always, I appreciate you guys hanging out, checking out the video. I will be making more videos soon. I need to brainstorm, come up with some ideas. I don't want to pretend I'm some build creator and ramble off some, broken build videos. But I might experiment with making my own build and testing it out and seeing how it goes. Regardless, again, appreciate you guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Deuces.